Hey there, Liz from Easy Eats Academy. We are going to be talking about all things spices today. So I wanted to do a spice video just because it is something that I have found. Obviously, my own cooking over the years has really evolved and like how I season things, as well as I've worked with clients when it comes to changes in their nutrition. And a lot of times, as we were sort of cutting different things out, right? Hey, swapping out olive oil for butter or like trying to cut down on different sauces and things like that. I wanted to make sure that they were still able to keep like the flavor in the meals, right? And so we're going to talk about a couple of different things. First, I'm going to go through a couple of different spice combinations, and then we're also just going to talk about a couple of key tips as you're seasoning things. So I'm starting with my four here, right? My basic four, which is salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder. That's kind of like my go-to. That's sort of like what I sort of start everything with, whether I'm seasoning my eggs, when I'm like seasoning potatoes that I'm gonna throw in the oven with like a little bit of olive oil. This is just like you can pretty much put this on anything, right? Steak, fish, chicken, pork. It goes with everything, right? It's an easy thing. And then just on that note, as we're talking about seasoning things, right? Specifically when it comes to any like meats, we always want to season both sides, not just one, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I wanted to throw that in as we were talking about it. So these are my four. And then what are a couple of other different combinations that we could put in with this? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring over thyme, celery seed, and sage. So this is going to be a really great one, like if you're making like a chicken soup or like a pork tenderloin, things like that. This is going to be really, really great. These are like your savory spices, right? Especially like when you heard the thyme and the sage. And the celery seed has so much flavor. I use it in so much stuff now, right? Let's say that I want to make something that's like maybe a little bit more kind of like a little bit more spicy, a little bit more kind of a different type of savory. So I'm going to bring over, I'm going to keep that celery seed, cumin, smoked paprika, right? So this is going to be a little bit more along the lines of like I'm making tacos, maybe I'm making chili, but I'm putting in like more of those, we'll just call them super generic, but like Southwest spices, right? And then the last thing that I'm going to go over is with the savory spices is, you could always start with these four and then maybe you like choose one other kind of fun one, right? Maybe you put in some chives, right? That could be one. As well as maybe I'm going to add in some, ooh, I forgot that I had this. Perfect. Herbes de Provence, right? So I know I'm not saying that right, by the way. But those are just going to be a couple of different ideas. And what you are noticing is that all of my spices, they're just individual spices. I do that for a couple reasons. When you're at the grocery store, obviously there's a lot of spice mixes, but then they're putting other things in there, right? It's kind of like when you buy shredded cheese versus block cheese. They have to put more things in there in order for it to stay fresh when it's shredded. So this is like a separate note, but if you can, I know it's not as easy, but buy the block cheese and then shred it. It will taste better. And a lot of times it's cheaper when you go with the block cheese. But so I went through like a lot of different options in terms of, we'll say, for like your meats and potatoes and your vegetables, right? But what we haven't really talked about though is, what about some of like the sweet spices and the warming spices? So I'm a big fan. I eat cream of wheat pretty much every morning. My husband pretty much eats oatmeal. And so I grew up obviously putting in more like brown sugar or white sugar, things like that. So I've removed those, but I still want to have that like sweet taste, right? Cinnamon. I like whole nutmeg that I shave in, but you don't have to do that. I've got almond extract here as well as vanilla extract, just like a drop or two in there, and it's just gonna give you more of they call these, like, these are not these because these are extracts, but these are like warming spices. And if you're looking for a little bit more, the warming spices are going to be allspice, cardamom, clove, like pumpkin pie spice, all of those things. So don't be afraid. You can put those in whatever you want if you want to kind of have that sweeter feeling. So I just wanted to give you a couple of ideas, and then just some fun ones that I really do like. That are, I guess you could say, more of a mix. I do use tagine in a lot of different things if I want to have some spice. It's got like a spicy flavor as well as like a little bit of lime. And if you're just like you're going camping and you can't bring like a ton of spices with and you want something easy, seasoned salt really is another great one that you can pretty much put on anything and everything. And then coming back with some of the tips. So I did mention the first big one, right? When you're seasoning your meats and things like that, you're going to season both sides, right? The only exception would be obviously if you're making a lot of fish, because if you have the skin on one side, but season it on both sides, right? And a couple of other things too. If you're making something and you're adding in things, so like when I make my soups, it's like I'm seasoning, like I start with the vegetables, right, in the olive oil and things like that. And so I season. And then I put in the meat. And then I season. And then I throw in the beans. And then I season. So I'm actually seasoning at each step to make sure that there's enough flavor going through. Obviously, when it comes to salt, we can obviously over salt things. But with a lot of the other spices, I always encourage people, add in a little bit more than you think. If my husband was here, he would say that, because when I was teaching him how to season, he's like, whoa. And like I said, this is just, kind of my opinion on things. But if you're going to make, let's say you're getting back at things and you're making really simple meals, like a baked chicken and like baked potato and like a steamed vegetable, right? These are just going to help to elevate the flavor, because having chicken by itself, no. You got to put some stuff on there, right? So hopefully today there was just like a couple of ideas for you as you're starting to cook a little bit more. So come back for more. We're going to be cooking some more good stuff next week.